Tripp, what's up, bro?
Not a whole lot, man. What's up with you?
Man, we're here. So that's where I can start, man. Honestly, so you and I, we've known each other probably maybe 2 years now, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
But you have all kind of shit going on, so we were sitting down talking, catching up a couple months ago, and I was like, fuck, man, let's just fucking have a podcast. We can hang out and talk shit and cover all the things that we didn't get to talk about that day, you know, and everything else.
Yeah.
So before we get into that, let's talk about, you brought some tequila, and I appreciate it. So we have some, it's a Reposado Cristalino, and it's Mi Familia Flores. So you want to drink some of this with me?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Yeah, I was just, you told me the style you liked, and I was like, let me pick out the most badass looking bottle that I could find of that.
Oh, it smells amazing.
It's got the built-in little cap, it looks like, too.
Oh, yeah. That's amazing. Oh, hell yeah. So I'm still not, so I have a tequila podcast, too, and we do it in here as well. So I'm still not like, not a connoisseur of sorts or any type of expert, but I do know what tastes good and what doesn't, right? And I won't sit here and like specify the nodes on this whatever the fuck, but I have come to like the Cristalino better. Basically, it's an aged tequila, and then they filter it back through like charcoal, whatever methods they use, depending on what brand it is, and so that makes it clear again. You know, because if you would have like an aged tequila, like a whiskey, it would be brown, like a Reposado. Right. It'll be a light brown. A Reposado would be light brown, and the Añejo would be a darker brown. And they run it through like a filtration system to get the color back out of it, so then it looks like a silver again. But it's fucking delicious. Have you ever had one?
I haven't. This is my first time with I've had an Añejo, but not the Cristalino.
This is going to be good.
All right.
Man, you took half the shot, didn't you? Shit. I'm just
is this more of a sipper?
It's a sipper, man, but it's okay. It's okay.
I can taste that now. Well, see, I'm new to tequila.
Yeah.
Well, not new to tequila. It just got me really sick one time when I was younger, and so I steered clear for a long time.
Me too, and that's the problem with, like, we had this, but since we're not on the tequila podcast, we can talk about this shit. I feel like it's not new information, right? I mean, it is new information. We have this conversation a lot where most people, the reason they don't like tequila is because they only associate it with margaritas or shots. Yeah. Shots of Patron, shots of 1800. And the problem with it is when you get something like this, now try it again and just sip it and tell me the difference, because it's all good. Because I gave you like a half-ass shot glass and regular glass. No, but when you try it and you sip it, this has like a cinnamon vanilla flavor.
It does, and it doesn't remind me of tequila that much. Like if you didn't tell me, if we did a blind taste test here, I would have been like, I don't know what I would have guessed, honestly.
You don't know what it was.
But it wouldn't have been, I don't think it would have been tequila.
I'm not fucking lying. This is probably some of the best I've ever tried. This is not no bullshit.
Yeah.
This shit is delicious.
It really is. I feel like I have a whole new perspective already. And just like you said, I hate, or like any sour mix like that they put in tequila, it gives me really bad.
Yeah, I can't.
In margaritas, it gives me really bad heartburn. And so, now I will say this: I learned Paloma. I don't know if you like a Paloma.
Oh fuck yeah, with grapefruit juice. Oh yeah, dude, I love it. So like that's the way to go. You get a little bit of grapefruit, a little bit of lime, and you get I think they may put some simple syrup in there, and then your Topo Chico.
Yeah.
And your tequila.
Well, and if it was some really shittier tequila, I can imagine. I mean, like, that's kind of what the first time I had tequila and it was like, all right, I can do this, it was a Paloma. Yeah. So that's kind of why I brought that to chase it. But this, you really don't need, it just needs to be drank, really. Yeah,
it's a sip, man. It's a sip. And the thing is like, it's, I don't know, man. It's a newfound, I don't know what made me swap. I can't even remember now the past. So for the longest time growing up, I would drink, like, whiskey. I was never a beer drinker. Even in high school, I drank the whiskey. First off, it was cheaper to get drunker. I get one bottle that lasts me like 3 or 4 weekends because I was a lightweight, and that's all I would have to drink, right? And I wouldn't have to chug beers and try to steal beers and, do cake stands and all. Do none of that shit. You just have your fucking mixed drink, chill. And then I got a little older, and I started drinking the beer a little bit. And then I got into vodka when I started cleaning up my act, like trying to get healthier.
Yep.
And then
take the calories out.
I got to where I didn't fucking like vodka anymore, man. I drank it for a good 5 or 6 year spread. And then somehow I got on tequila. I kind of always liked a good margarita, but it had to be made right. And I guess I just kind of started drinking it by itself. And now I fucking love it, dude. And I can drink it like a good scotch or something,
Well, it definitely hits. And I've heard that recovery-wise, they say that it's really superior to other alcohols as far as if you drink too much, or like when it comes to hangovers, they say your body processes, I guess, the agave type of sugar better.
Right. Yeah, apparently, because most are already other, like especially vodkas, a lot's derived from potato, and you have whiskeys derived from corn. I guess it's more of a complex, carb or whatever. So I don't really know. I don't know how many studies are actually accurate on that, but yes, of course, I think that's another thing. Recovery is way better on this because I'm tracking recovery with working out all the time, and then I'm having this shit, and I can have 2 or 3 drinks after a hard workout and get the next morning. My recovery is still 60-70%, whereas if I had another kind of drink or got hammered, it would be way worse.
So let me ask you about recovery tracking because like I've kind of gotten into fitness, not as long as you, but I'm sticking with it. And
right.
I've been on
How
the
long
fence.
Have you been working out now?
A little over 2 years.
Say, like
consistently 4, 5, 6 days a week, 2.5 years.
Okay.
So actually, no, that's not right. Consistently, it's just about to be 2 years.
Okay.
So basically, February 1st will be 2 solid years. I'm sorry. I started fiddling around with it a little bit before that, but then I got serious. But now I'm like on the fence about like tracking. Like I've been tracking my calories pretty well as far as my macros, but like actually tracking that recovery, maybe getting a Whoop strap, or like my girlfriend gave me her old Fitbit the other day.
Yeah.
Is this something you?
All right, so I did an Apple Watch for like fucking 2 years, and it was great. I thought it was cool, but it wasn't accurate because it's just kind of, I guess it uses an algorithm based on what information you enter. But I got the Whoop strap. I've been on it now probably almost fucking over a year for sure because I just got my whole year report from it the other day. I got an email, so I was like,
report card.
Yeah, pretty much. And it told me how many days I was in low recovery, how many days that, and how many days it didn't track, which many days I let it die, which is not a lot. I try to keep it on. You keep it on 24/7, but it's waterproof, submersible, all that. But what I've noticed is it's just kept me accountable and honest, like with myself. Like, did you get enough sleep? The biggest thing for me is how much you work. Most people don't, like people just say, I only need 3 hours of sleep. That was me for the longest fucking time. But I also didn't have a healthy, consistent lifestyle. I wasn't married. I wasn't in a day-to-day where, of course, I was always being productive and working during the day and had my 9 to 5 or what, quote, but like, I still wasn't tracking everything. Now, when you get kind of grounded a little bit, then you start looking at stuff like, I was only getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep and I felt great, but then I started watching it here, and saying, okay, based on your resting heart rate, how hard you worked out that day, this is the sleep you require. And it just made me more honest with myself. I thought I felt fine because I was like, I only need 3 or 4 hours of sleep. I'm good to go. But really, my body was like, fuck you. You're only at 37% recovery. Get an additional 2 to 3 hours, maybe only 7 hours of sleep, and you're at 90% recovery. So that's good enough for me. So that's what it's opened my eyes for. Everybody's different. But for me, 6 to 7 hours of sleep is ideal for me. Whereas for my wife, we're on it together. She needs 8 to 10. It's just different, but our strains, it kind of measures your strain based on your heart rate variability, how hard you work out. It measures, how long your heart rate's elevated versus, how long, whatever the resting version is. It kind of creates a formula that way and then kind of spits out a strain saying, this is how much you've strained today, and then this is how much recovery you need. So it just gets you really fucking in check, in tune with your body, your rest and your cycle stuff. Because for the longest time, I would work out every single day. And I was working out different muscle groups and stuff, but I was overworking myself and not getting enough rest because I was only getting 30 to 40% recovery every day. So I really was just shooting myself in the fucking foot because my muscles weren't doing what they didn't need. They didn't have the rest or the oxygen they needed. So I'm just literally just beating myself to death for no reason.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
No,
didn't mean to go on a rant there about it, but yeah, I mean it's like legit. There's something to it, and kind of being like figuring out exactly what every single person's body's different. Like there's no one formula that says, hey, this is what you put in all these, this workout, this time, and this rest, and you're going to get optimal success. No, you got to figure out what your body needs.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing, and it's probably the best thing, but it was an unintended consequence of me starting to work out is just learning my body. Because, when you first start working out, get with a trainer, start doing this, and this. And for me, I was doing a little bit too much in the beginning, and I could handle it, but my body wasn't growing that good at first because I was just overloading it.
Yeah.
Then once I backed off just a little bit, got a little more specific, and now you just got to keep. Once you kind of hit that plateau of where you're at, you got to tear everything up again and start over and figure out how to make it happen all over again.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but I encourage you, if you want to get one, man. I think it's the next step to and it's not even if you're a working out person. It's just I think it would work for full on any, because here's another thing people don't think about. My strain level will be really high on days I don't work out if I overload myself with other mental tasks. So you'll see it and you'll be like, holy shit, my strain's an ideal strain every day if you have a really high recovery is between like 12 and 14 is kind of the strain number. My fucking strain one day may be 12 and I hadn't even worked out yet. I'm like, holy shit. And then I realized, oh, fuck, I had all these stressors going on. And so that requires, so it's crazy what it does. It really it tunes it in. So I think even if you're not a quote unquote active person, that even if you wore it, it would kind of keep you in tune with, are these things, making my heart rate rise and stressing me out, making my body work more so that I need more rest, kind of thing.
Well,
this is dangerous too because it's really fucking.
Yeah, I could tell.
It's subtle, man.
It is subtle. Well, part of what got me into really looking into that is the sleep part because, well, when it comes to writing, there's a lot of different philosophies. But if you're going to be good at comedy, you have to write every day.
Yeah.
Or you have to write a lot. So, and I've listened to so many different philosophies, but part of me wants to get up at the same time every day and do a certain amount of writing, and that's fine. It's good to be disciplined, but a lot of my most creative time is more late at night. And like, for instance, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 nights ago, me and my girlfriend started drinking a lot, and we got half drunk, and I had a few ideas spark off, and she went to sleep. Next thing you know, she wakes up at like 4 a.m, and I've just been in there. I've got like 15 pages done out, and she's been to sleep for a couple of like 3 or 4 hours. And I was in the zone, and I had no clue it was 4 a.m. So the next day, like, I just slept later. And the good thing about the way my schedule is now is I can, if I stay up late one night, usually afford to just sleep a little bit later.
Yeah.
But it is like, I've been, I guess, curious about that balance. Like at some point, should I just buckle down and have a schedule and I don't know. With the creative side of things, it's just hard sometimes.
Well, you got to let it flow when it comes, right?
That's
something people don't understand about art, anything creative. Like it, and I'm different because like my creativeness comes out in these sessions when we know we're going to sit down and we'll fine tune. We'll get to rolling, then it gets kind of fine tuned as it moves forward. And then I do the food thing, and I know the food's coming, and then I just kind of do it on the spot, right? So mine's different, whereas your stuff is idea-based. So if an idea hits you, I understand where you just need to capitalize on it right then, because what if you forget?
Yeah, well, I've definitely learned to, like, for instance, the same night that happened, we were out, and we were playing pool, and for whatever reason, playing pool, it gets, especially when I'm playing, like, against somebody that's a good player, and all you can kind of focus on is that game, it weirdly helps me come up with good ideas because I'm not thinking about a bunch of different things. I'm just thinking about that game. Yeah. And all of a sudden something will hit me, and I've gotten good about writing down, like, if I just have a short idea, let me, like, just write a sentence about what it, like a summary of it, and then I'll come back to it later. And that night I had, like, 4 or 5 different things that were just good ideas, and then when I got home, I spent time on each one of them. And I feel like I do want to have a good sleep schedule, but I don't feel like I can, like, when you have that kind of in that moment, you just got to go until you're done, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I get it. Yeah. As long as you have, like, I feel like depending on, like, if that's where it comes into play. Like, so if you're working out all week and you're steady hustle because you got a day job too, doing things, and then you hit the weekend, and that may be when you're going to go out, have a couple drinks, do things, then you don't use those days for working out. You use the days for recovery. Then kind of a balance, right?
Yeah.
If you're getting a steady sleep schedule all week, and you're going doing having drinks, doing things on the weekend, you have some rest, should balance out. I don't know, man, but that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah.
Some sort of schedule I feel like for me is great. Like, I will forget every fucking thing if it's not in my calendar. So I've gotten to where I'm having to constantly update that thing, look at that thing, because I'll talk about some stuff with an employee or with my wife or whatever, and I'm like, just fucking put it on my calendar because I will forget, just because too much shit coming from different directions.
See, I'm not that. I'm different in that. Like, I love having a calendar. I guess like if it's something far out, but most of my stuff, like I have to be forced to put it into a calendar just because I'm good at memorizing it.
Yeah.
But what I have learned is really good for me is to make a list for daily stuff. Like when I like if I know tomorrow I've got to get X, Y, and Z done, I've learned that my mind will I have an excellent memory, but one of the tricks it plays on me is that whenever I got something I really don't want to do, I might be like avoiding it or whatever, like trying to like kind of procrastinating, and then next thing you know, I'm like, man, I didn't remember that. And it wasn't that I couldn't remember it. Like I subconsciously didn't want to remember it.
Yeah.
So I've started learning to have like I don't worry about a calendar as much for the future, but I do have like a daily task. Like all right, so, and I try to like each day write down what tomorrow's is, because it also just when I have a list, it's a lot easier to like if I know I've got to get 5 things done, I could probably get those done quicker than anybody.
Yeah.
But if I don't have them written down, I could take longer than anybody.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense. I'm the complete opposite. Whereas I can remember the day-to-day shit. Like if I have for instance, if I have like a barbecue catering job coming up, and I'm like, oh fuck, I need to get X, Y, and Z. Well, at this point now, I don't really make a list. It's mentally there, so I'll go get my stuff, order it, whatever I need to do. But if I don't have it on the calendar for next week, I will fucking forget.
Man, well, it's so fucked sometimes how your mind will it's funny. I was talking to a guy the other day about like having that desire, like some days you get up and it's like I get upset because, well, like there has been a time in my life when I didn't really do what I wanted to be doing. I wasn't,
you're good.
I wasn't exactly where I wanted to be at. So like I'd wake up and I'm like, man, I don't really want to go to this job. I do not want to listen to Bob or whoever, insert whatever guy was above me. Now it's like, all right, you're the boss, but what are you going to do about it? You know what I'm saying? Are you going to, and so some days like, I'll just be there and I'll sit, even have pen on paper ready to write or have my computer out and I'm ready to go. But there's just some like force that's like pushing against you. And as soon as I start, it kind of starts melting away.
I feel that same shit all the time. There's like things that tell you, I know I need to do this shit, but I haven't given myself the time to sit down and do it yet. And it's like, it's always up, and then it's like it'll stockpile on you, and then once you sit down and start doing it, it's fucking. It's
not that hard.
No, it's not that hard.
But it's the
like,
thinking
fuck.
about it.
Yeah.
Thinking about it is harder than the actually doing it.
It puts it on there.
But it's also like it's almost like this weird to me. Like I don't want to get too heady, but like it's almost this weird like reward system that the universe has built in, where like if you do the things like we were talking about cold plunges earlier.
Yeah.
Like getting up first thing in the morning and walking down. Especially like our alleyway, it's like really tight and it has a good wind draft going through it. So you're going there in your swimming trunks, and I'm like, it is cold, bro. And then you get in that water and it is cold. But when you get out, like, dude, like my girl's like, damn, you're a man. And like, God, man, like it does something to you that like it just makes you feel a little more animalistic. And there's something about when you do things that suck that just make things better. And like writing doesn't suck, but sometimes getting started does it. And that's what's so weird. Like when you're trying to do something that's like, it's almost like your mind's saying like, hey man, we're good. Like we got food, you can just sit in bed. Like you got Netflix, you got all these little things, your girlfriend will be home in 7 hours, why you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
But as soon as you do, it's just like, you get that reward of like,
well, no, I fucking agree. Like we make shit hard when it doesn't have to be, but then also there's a lot of people that will not even face the fucking hard at all. I was thinking about this shit yesterday, and we did a 45-minute workout, and it was excruciating, and it was constant, and I was probably 20 seconds from completing the whole work. Most people didn't finish it. I think only 2 people finished it out of probably 30 that was working out yesterday.
So like you had to do like a certain amount within that time?
Yes. So you had all these objectives. It was like 99 reps of this, 88 reps of this, 77 reps of this, 66 reps, all the way to
within 45 minutes.
Yeah. All, and this is not body weight shit. This is all moving weights around and doing stuff. And we get to the end, and I finish it within like 20 seconds. I didn't finish it, so I had like 20 or 30 seconds left of stuff I needed to get done, but I also wasn't pushing myself to my absolute peak, because I just went hard Saturday, so I was like, okay, this is good enough, But anyways, I was thinking while I was on the fucking Echo bike, because I had to do like 55 calories on that, which took me like 2 minutes and 45 seconds, which is it's a while going really hard on the Echo bike, right? I was thinking to myself, like, most of us we never tread into those deep waters of our fucking mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
We never really get into that deep mindset to where we have to fucking question ourselves or we have to fucking test ourselves. We're like, motherfucker, like, it's quit now or finish this shit. So, like, I thought about this because I knew we were going to talk today. I was like, well, if this comes up, I'll talk about it. But also, I'd had a previous show with Ben came on and we kind of did a swap on the, you know, the.
I saw that when you were on this chair.
And he was asking me stuff. And I really couldn't answer the question because I hadn't thought about it. And I was thinking about this shit mid-workout, which is crazy. But your mind goes into a different place when you're in a tough fucking spot, right? And so mentally, physically, it's excruciating when you're pushing your body to this fucking, you know, basically where you want to quit. But also mentally is the part that tells you to keep going or stop, right? Most people quit. 80% of people are going to stop because, one, it's uncomfortable. Two, it's maybe like your body's, you know, tired and you just can't go further. You know, there's all these things that say mentally that you can fucking stop. But the motherfuckers that really go like the distance in anything, they push themselves further because of their mental capacity, right? And like most of us don't get into those deep waters ever in our life. So when we do get to those, we start treading that water a little bit, we freak the fuck out and get out.
Well, you do, man. And it's interesting you say that because I grew up in a place where, you know, I grew up cowboying, and it was like...
Yeah, that's why I was going to go back. I was going to ask you... Yeah.
Well, I used to actually get pressed into... See, it took me getting a lot... Like, not a lot of... I mean, I'm only 33 now, but it took me getting to a certain age to where I didn't know until a couple of years ago how hard I used to get pushed. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like I can remember days where it would be 33 and raining all day, and you're on a horse all day, and especially being like a 10-year-old kid. Yeah. You know?
So how did that happen? So what were you doing cowboying? Your family was into... Like, how did that work?
Well... It was kind of like distant family. My dad basically worked for his uncle. Okay. You know, and he, you know, the slogan was, we don't get rained out, we get rained on. Yeah. You know, and it was, he just worked really hard. And my family didn't have much. So when I was really young, I was like, all right, you know, basically my mom had a boss who like kind of had sympathy for us and was like, hey, you know, if you want, I can send your kids to YMCA for the summer. And I was like, no, I'm going to go work. Yeah. And so when I was 9 years old, I started, you know, cowboying every summer, every day. And I'd get off the bus on the ranch during the school years and work spring break. And a lot of it sucked, but I learned a lot of lessons from it. And I've been paying into Social Security since I was 10. Yeah. You know, there's loopholes. A lot of people are like, you know, you were working that young and nobody got onto you, but there's loopholes with agricultural jobs because
same thing.
Going way back into the war days and stuff, you had to have food. So there's not really an age limit.
There's a lot of loopholes there because it started with me at 12, I believe 12 too, when I was working in the lumber company. Same kind of thing. Yeah.
So now it's like I had to bust my ass then and do things that, I mean, I'm so thankful for, you know, just because of what it taught me. But now I'm starting to I've got to do cold plunges, and I got to I've built this comfortable life off of like something else, and it's like now I've started slacking like in certain areas because I don't, you know, everything. You know, what is that that I hear on a couple different podcasts, but it's like it's hard to get up and run like 6 miles when you're in silk sheets. You know? Yeah. And I'm not saying I'm in silk sheets.
That's
but
some David Goggins shit.
Yeah. But I've made it far enough to where I'm like, you know, like I don't have to get up right now. Mm-hmm. But now I'm finally starting to like, you know, like really appreciate the suck, if you will. Like now, like getting up in the morning, going to get a cold plunge, hit the gym, get in the sauna after that. Like it's something I look forward to because I know when I get done with it, it's going to drive me.
Here's the one thing about this I think about is the people that listen or watch and hear that and they may think these motherfuckers got all the time to do this shit, right? Because they may get up in the morning at 6 a.m. and they got to get their kids to school and then they got to go work and by the time they get off. But here's the thing. All the work's been done up to now to get to this point. And the thing is, I'm still finding time. Motherfucker, I'm still working till midnight every night. When you get off at 5 and go home and your day ends because you're working for someone, I'm working for myself. That means I got to do everything to get ready for the next day. Whereas there's a team of people where you work, there's not here. It's just me or, you know, me and my wife or whoever. And we got to get this shit together for the next fucking day. So, like, yeah, we may get up and go work out in the morning and shit, but we still are we're constantly fucking doing shit. So, like, you got to find that. It's hard to relay a message to some people, I think, and I hear things like where people are saying, well, I get up and do this, and I work out, and I do X amount of things before I start my day. And some people are just like, I just can't fucking do that. You may not can do it, but you can do it at 10 o'clock at night when your kids go to sleep. You know, like, and maybe that's not what you need. Maybe you don't need physical activity. Maybe you need a fucking mental break. Like, everybody's thing's different, right? For me, I have to break myself fucking down mentally, physically. I have to break myself down physically before I can start breaking myself down mentally.
Yeah.
Where some people are already broken down physically when they get home, but then they don't take the time to shut down. So I think everybody's different. So when people hear that and they're like, fuck that, must be nice, you know, like whatever, that doesn't sound like a big deal. I just think everyone's different. They need to figure out, you know, what it is they need to do. At the end of the day, you just need to take time for yourself. You know, however you access your mental fucking, you know, refreshment is, you know, that's each to their own. But for me, I have to beat myself down physically first. Because if not, I'll just keep fucking avoiding it.
Well, I think so too. Like, I definitely have to start. Like, if I don't, like, when you're talking about workouts and stuff, like, if I don't start my day with the sucky shit, it doesn't get done every time.
Right.
Certainly not as consistent. Like, I've done afternoon workouts.
Yeah.
And some days when especially if you're working a job you hate, and, you know,
you don't want to do this
and
shit.
Dave has been an asshole, you know, like, and then you get home, you're like, let me have a few glasses of wine, and then your wife or your girlfriend's like, oh, baby, I'm so sorry, and then you smoke a little joint, next thing you know, you're like, fuck it, I'll work out tomorrow. Yeah. You know, but if you just get it done first thing in the morning, it's like, okay, the other thing is, like, for me, I mean, people can say what they want, but I've struggled with like, I grew up a fat kid, and then, like, I got thin, you know, partially probably just when I hit puberty, you know, I just started, you know, you get more testosterone, but I worked my ass off. And then I got a job in the car business where I sat at a desk most of the day, and I got fat because I wasn't doing anything, and I was still eating like a guy that worked like an animal. Yeah. So then I was like, all right, I got to lose some weight. So I did P90X, and it's really hard. You know, I'm sure.
Some high intensity shit.
It is. Yeah. And for somebody that doesn't work, like that's went from, you know, busting ass on a farm. You know, I didn't work out, but I worked.
Right, but you weren't in there doing the gym movements.
Exactly.
Right.
And then I just sat in a desk for years.
Right.
P90X was tough, and so I did the full 90 days, and I lost like 60 pounds, and I looked good. But after that, I hated it because I just pushed myself too hard. And so I think a lot of people see someone at somewhat of an end result point, or they see someone that is really good looking or is really successful, and they're like, well, they have this, this, and this, but they don't understand that, like, I was 70 pounds heavier at one point, and I had to, one little step at a time, make it to where I am now. And it's not easy, but it's also not something that happened overnight. And some people, even like when I was younger than I am now, and I'm still pretty young, but it's like, it's really easy to think that things are just going to happen overnight. It's hard to think about things in like a 2 to 3 or 5 year scale. And especially when it comes to fitness, people want to be like, you know, how can I lose 60 pounds in 60 days? You can, but if you look at people, like, look at the fighters that have to do the serious weight cuts, the Patty Pimblets of the world, even that Alex Pajeda, like he like, these guys cut so much weight, they do, and then when they get off of, you know, having to be there,
go right back up.
They blow back up because it's just it's not meant to be done that way. And I certainly, like, this last go at it, I guess I've taken a longer, slower approach, but it's been more effective.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. I think, I mean, the last weight cut I made before I quit was 50 pounds, but I did over 3 months. It's still a lot whenever you've been doing
a certain camping, especially when you're doing that kind of intensity.
It's just a lot. And I was like, you know, but a lot of those people do it every single camp, so it's one of those things where it's like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, but it is. And then some people, like, 50 pounds to them is a life-changing fucking thing. Whereas to a fighter, it's just like, I'm getting down to make this weight so I can compete at this weight. But tomorrow I'll be right back. You know, or 2 weeks I'll be right back up. You know, not necessarily 50, but 20 or 30.
Well, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. No, I was going to say, let's just talk about, so we hadn't even told anyone what you're doing, who you are, all that. So let's talk about, so basically, you, when I met you, you were in car sales. And then since then, you've opened your own bail bonds company, and that's been successful. And now you're, you know, dipping your toes into the water of comedy. You've been doing that pretty, you know, regular here. So let's talk about all this shit, man. So let's go back to before where you're at now and kind of bring it back.
Well, you know, I kind of told you earlier, I grew up in the, like, being a cowboy.
Yeah.
And I quit school in the 10th grade, and I started, I was still working for that farm, but I kind of started, like, I had some of my own cattle that I had started buying, and I did pretty good for a couple years, but when the economy really tanked in '08, I just kind of lost it all, and I didn't really want to be involved with it anymore, and so I got to selling cars.
Where were you at this point?
That was back in Alabama, and that was in Montgomery, Alabama.
Okay, all right.
So I get into selling cars right in the middle of a recession, and I just took off. I sold 14 cars in my first 14 days, and I was making money. And at that time, it was all survival, so money was all that really mattered.
Right.
And I thought that was all I was ever going to do. So I worked up to being the finance guy and being the sales manager and the general sales manager, and I just kept stepping up the ladder. And I moved around. I ended up living in Houston for a while. I thought I was going to be an artist out there originally, doing pottery and selling pottery at like art and craft shows.
Nice, okay.
And after I ran out of money, because that was a terrible idea, I got back in the car business. And I did really good there because the market was really good for a couple years. And then, see, Houston's really sensitive. Like Houston sometimes outpaces the economy when we're in a recession, but when gas prices go down, Houston typically goes down because that's where a lot of the refineries are. There's a ton of it's all a gas and oil kind of town.
Right.
So I eventually moved out towards East Texas, Longview, and I took a job. See, when you're in the car business, if you are even decent, and you're a manager, you can kind of move anywhere. It sucks because you're going to still have to work a lot, but you can move. So I went from Longview, and when I got there, it was just a little too dead, and I got an offer from the same company to move over to Shreveport. So I was like, all right, let me come to Shreveport. So I was kind of helping running the Cadillac store there, and then I got arrested one day, which is I've kind of later learned is like a rite of passage in the Shreveport Bossier area.
Yeah.
But while I was in jail, I was like, man,
what did you get arrested for?
DWI.
Okay, gotcha.
But I've been in a little bit of different trouble when I was younger, and I'd always thought about how much of a sham it was going to jail. You got to pay this money, and then you got to pay a lawyer and all this. So I was like, man, I'm going to be a bail bondsman.
Yeah.
And right after that, I just met a bail bondsman too, and somebody that I could like get my license through. So I go to jail. I get out. That was in January of 2020. So 2 months later, the lockdown happened. So a day before they announced the lockdowns, I quit my job because I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna be a bail bondsman.
Yeah.
So all through the pandemic, I worked under somebody, and I went doing bounty hunting gigs from Texas, Tennessee, and Arizona, and all in between. And when I got my license eventually that year, and I started my own company. So now I own a bail bonds company here. It's called Fast AF Bail Bonds.
Yeah.
And we don't care what you call us, just call us. So that's been good because it kind of built an income source, and a lot of people go to jail here. It's unfortunate. A
lot of people go to jail everywhere, man.
They do, but it's specifically like people do.
The system here is fucked.
It is, man. Louisiana's. I mean, and I know that I profit off of it, so it's like some people like have a problem with that, but the system is what it is. I didn't make it, and I don't agree with every part of it. There's some things that if they reformed,
at the end of the day, you're still getting people out of jail.
You are, and the thing is I try to like work with people, especially if you don't have all the money. I'll let them make payments, and I try to help people out because I have been stuck in there, and it's not easy for everybody to get out. I mean, and it is the system that we have. So if you don't know somebody that's a bail bondsman, and you don't have really good credit, like it's kind of a crediting system, really. When you go to get out, like it's depending on how much your bond is. If you don't have somebody that has a bunch of property, and so I'll work with some people that might not have all the qualifications if they give me the warm and fuzzy feeling. If I know they're just trying to con me, I'm not just going to deal with anybody.
Well, you have a system to where, and my wife's in law enforcement, so I know this works, and your side of it, and I've been on the other side of it too. So like, you have a system that's flawed to where the point where we're housing these people that are continually going in for the same offenses, whereas they could be something. We have a lot of that, right? And then we have a lot of people who go in who just are one nighters. And so it's like there's a whole mix of different types of people, and I know you can that's why I just brought it up, because I know you can shed light on all those things and kind of give more facts to it, right?
Well, for one, I mean, there's like 80 to 90% of our business are involved with two different things, and then like there's a lot of other crimes. I'm not saying they're not bad crimes, but of what I bond people out, it's either drugs or domestic violence.
Right.
Okay. So if you take out, I mean, and to be conservative, that's probably 80% of the business is probably drugs and domestic violence. And I don't know, like, it's hard to cite any like if you look at, there's a lot of different government statistics out there, but I can assure you that they're not all counted on the up and up, depending on who counts it.
Right, of course.
I mean, I've just seen, living in different places throughout my life, you can tell how the different governments operate. A lot of things go under the radar, unreported, or they get misreported. I mean, it's just somebody at a certain level wants to look a certain way, and it affects everything downstream.
Right.
But that being said, you know, a lot of it, I feel like a lot of what we do in the system is we're fighting we're playing a zero-sum game. You know, like if you've been putting your hands on somebody or been physical, you should probably be in jail.
Right.
You know, but weed is legal here now in the state if you have a medical card, which you can do, and like if you have the $200 to spend on it. Yeah. Which sounds simple to a lot of people, but an extra $200 is not easy for everybody. And if you have an extra $200 and you're willing to go wait, by the way, the line, I've been there because I have my own medical card. The line to get that medical weed here, it wraps around the building. Yeah. It takes forever, and so they have like it's getting better, but they're still putting. I still bond people out today for weed.
Well, I mean, it's still federal.
Well, it's still federally illegal,
right? You know,
but they're kind of giving the choices to the states. Right. But then like it's just weird how a couple states over you're doing nothing wrong. Yep. A couple other states over somebody's doing life for selling a whole lot of weed. You know, the Biden administration announced not so long ago that they were going to commute all the federal marijuana possession charges, which equaled zero. Yeah. Because nobody's doing Fed time over possession. Exactly. Like that's the kind of stuff that people go to jail for here. Like you're not doing. So it's like there's this whole, you know, at the end of the day, in my opinion, people have been doing drugs since the beginning of time, and there's certain drugs that are really bad for people. You know, but just like with alcohol, we had that outlawed for a while, and what happened? People kept drinking, but then people started dying because they were making shitty alcohol. Yep. And it had different shit in it that was killing people. So eventually they're like, all right, like obviously you got motherfuckers who are going to drink.
Yeah, it's not going to go away.
It's not going away.
Let's figure out how to make money on it.
Well, not just make money, but let's make sure it's done right. Right. So you're going to pay a tax, but we're going to inspect it, because I can guarantee you, like you can die off alcohol still, but you got to drink enough of it. Right. And most of us can't even make it that far. So it's pretty tough. You know, it's people die on alcohol, but it's usually from wrecks and stuff like that. It's
from consuming alcohol and then doing something they shouldn't do.
It's very rare that someone dies from an overdose of alcohol, because it's all monitored. So the same with drugs. Like you had Big Pharma, they're allowed to get everybody addicted on opioids for, you know, they give people OxyContin for back pain. Now people are doing heroin that has fentanyl in it, and it's killing more people than anything, you know, and they're not like all they have to do is just it sounds. So here's the thing: things change slowly, but the reality is people have been doing these things since the beginning of time. Yeah. You're never going to stop that. So if we can all just put all our little feelings aside and realize that people are going to do these things, it might not be something you agree with, but they're going to do it. And I'm sure that anybody that is at disagreement with it does something also that other people don't agree with. So like we all are going to do things somebody doesn't agree with, but as a whole, we have a big problem with like how many kids do you know that aren't really into drugs, that just do it once or twice and they get that drugs with fentanyl and they die? Yeah. You know, they're not bad kids. No. Like maybe they made a bad choice, or maybe they just weren't ready for what was being put into their body. But instead of us saying like, hey, let's not do this, let's raise awareness and let's make it, you know, like I think the reason it doesn't happen, by the way, is because everyone that makes laws, a lot of them are lawyers. And if you made a lot of these things legal and taxed it and then rehabbed everybody with the money you got from it, it would be real easy to – I wouldn't say easy to fix it because it's a big problem, but I think you could at least have a better chance versus just pretend – like I feel like the old way of doing things is let's pretend this doesn't exist, you know, and let's just sweep it under the rug and you can't do that.
Until it comes back to bite us in their ass.
Well, I mean, like now we have cartels. You know, like they made drugs illegal, but now like cartels didn't exist like that before the war on drugs. Yeah. You know, like it's
no. There's someone always going to uprise against it and make. Yeah, I mean, it's just going to happen. And then at that point, it's like, well, that specific you know, group of people is now regulating against you, who you were originally the regulators. You know what I mean? It's going to be a constant battle. But all it boils down to is you're telling someone they can't do something.
Well, especially an adult, like dude, like okay, like this is one of the reasons I got into bail bonds. Like when I was I'm 33 now. When I was 22, I got busted for buying some weed in Alabama, and it was illegal.
Yeah,
and I admit that. But I paid probably $50,000 in taxes between federal, state, and local that year.
Yeah.
I was in a suit when they arrested me. I had just gotten off work on a Friday. And they took me to jail, and my boss, who was a state senator at the time, actually offered to bail me out, and I didn't want him to be close to it, but I'm just like, there's no reason for me to go to jail. Like, I wasn't high while I was driving. I had bought some, but they had like 18 different cars around me, right? There was like this sting. I was involved around somebody. There was this sting operation. So they had all these cops involved. Like, I didn't have any weapons. They even arrested me. What was funny is they blocked off the road and like made me pull into a Catholic church parking lot. So I'm in front of a Catholic church. My boss found out because there's these people that it's right in front of this rich neighborhood, and all these people are like, "Is that the gentleman that works for you?" And I'm like, everyone made a big to-do about it, but I was just smoking weed.
Yeah.
And like now I can get it legally with a medical card while I legally bail people out of jail that are in jail for possessing it. And it's just like, should they have been putting not just, they shouldn't be putting anyone in jail for that, but like, I just wasn't hurting anyone.
Right.
And I was also, by all accounts, helping my community. And there was no reason that should have happened. And there's just so many people that end up doing time over things that they're not violent people. They're not bad people. We just have some things that are outdated.
Well, like I've had this conversation with multiple cannabis experts on here from, people who've working with, as diplomats for the system as it's, become legal in this state and other states as well, and conversations with people who've been in the industry and actually have clinics that provide these things. And, it's just this was just something just like I know you know this story, but just like the cotton industry that was, put forth and, in motion and kind of basically overran the cannabis industry because, they were using cannabis for fiber and stuff like that. All that happened in the early 1900s.
Well, you know why that happened, right?
Money, man. It
was William Randolph Hearst.
Yeah,
he owned all the publications.
Yeah.
And he was like, he had just invested a bunch of money into cotton gins.
Yeah.
That was the thing. And because he had that kind of pull, there wasn't – the cool thing now, I will say, is that there's so much awareness on this stuff that I feel like it's just a matter of time if we don't kill each other first with nukes or something, that all this will shake out. But back then, that guy worth all the money in the world, he had the ability to shift the opinions. And the thing is that hemp is not nearly as detrimental to the environment.
Right.
And it lasts longer. It's just a better plant all around when it comes to making fibers like that. Like you said, even paper. So,
but we wouldn't know that because we haven't been educated on it because from an early standpoint, it was hijacked basically. But for do profits. And that's all fine and well. And ever since then, it's been looked down upon and had this egregious fucking attack on it. And so now it's like we're trying to climb out of this hole, and then all these people all this illegal money has been made, and then all these people have been put into prisons and jails, and we've been paying for that as tax people, when all the while these people could be walking around free when they're just basically having another recreational habit that's probably not as detriment to them as tobacco use, right?
Well,
and here's the thing, I'm not even a fucking avid cannabis user, man. I'm just stating the fucking facts that I know, and it's kind of common sense. These people the war on drugs was such a heavy thing, and it hit hard really in the fucking 70s, right? In the 60s, and it's like
no, the war on drugs came later.
Well, but I'm saying that okay, excuse me, not the war on drugs, but the actual people delegating against marijuana use was really heavy in the fucking 60s and took off really hard in the 70s, where you had people that would say, the whole hippie movement and all that.
They say, that was also the was it Harry? I think it's I can't think of his last name. Harry. I wish we could look up his name, but it's Harry Ansler, I think. But there was a big thing that they came out with, and Hearst helped him with that too.
Yeah,
because this tied into that cotton thing. They came out with a hit piece about how marijuana would make white women want to sleep with black men.
Exactly, because black men was. I know the whole thing.
That's the whole.
Exactly.
The whole thing started with that.
That's where it starts, but it all starts with the fucking cotton gin, right?
Well, it sort of, but it also like it's weird because it's like they delegated certain drugs to start like weed became like the black man's drug, and then they had like
until
they attacked opiates, but they attacked opiates for being like Asian drug.
Yeah.
So like they had all these different things they started making illegal because they had these different connotations and I don't know why they came up with that. I think they just assigned it.
No, it makes sense because we're already a segregated society. So when they can apply something to someone they're segregated against,
that Asian man,
you're not opium. Exactly. You're not going to do that. You're not going to do that black man's.
I'm like, have you tried opium?
Right.
It's kind of nice.
But it makes sense, right?
But and also, by the way, fentanyl. Like I've had fentanyl when a horse fell on my leg and I had to get my leg rebuilt. Fentanyl is a great thing.
Yeah.
But kids not knowing how much fentanyl they're getting, deadly. And that's the other thing too. Like same with alcohol. Like alcohol. You and I are having a great time right now sipping a few of these. But if we had gotten it from some guy that sold it from some who knows where and it had lead in it and we died tomorrow, it wouldn't be that nice.
Exactly.
And that's the thing. Like with drugs, I feel like you're never going to stop everyone, but also like let's just educate. Like I feel like old society like to hide things. So instead of being like, hey, this is what you should do, they were like, oh, God don't like that, and I'm a proponent of God. I'm a very spiritual being, and I love studying about God, but I also know that there is a reality to all of these things we try to sweep under this rug of let's not worry about that when we should be educating kids because. Especially now, like kids have it all at their like I used to read encyclopedias as a kid, and I would get mad at my parents for lying to me about things they didn't even know they were lying about.
No, they don't know.
They were like, wait, what?
Your culture brings you up and gives you this information, and until you've proven otherwise, you have no idea.
Exactly. So now, like these kids have Google, and like your kid's going to ask you some things, and like I think we should answer them. I think as a culture, like I'm not saying we should go out and tell every kid everything. Like kids need to be kids. But if they start asking you questions, even if they're younger than you think they should be, I think you need to go into it with a proactive.
At that point what that mind can take.
Exactly. Right.
So it's a fine line between lying to them and then telling them, a little bit of the truth that'll lead into more truth later, right?
Exactly.
Right.
The Santa Claus thing, it kind of ties into what we were talking about because nobody really knows the story of Santa Claus. We all have what we were taught as a kid.
Yeah.
And I can remember when I was a kid, like I smelled bullshit immediately.
Yeah, man. Me too.
Like I busted my parents out when I was 5. Like because when I was 4, even I remember being like, "Bro, there's something about this shit. There's nobody that slides down this fucking chimney."
Well, we live in a trailer house. We didn't have a fucking chimney.
But I'm just saying, like our chimney was small. It was so small. I was like, this fat motherfucker is not getting in here. So I tried to stay up when I was 4, and I failed at that miserably. So when I was 5, I was like, you know what? I'm going to catch this motherfucker if he's here. So I made a pallet behind the Christmas tree.
How many kids do you think do that every year? Probably thousands.
Maybe, I don't know. But
thousands.
But definitely I was like, I made a pallet behind the Christmas tree. So 4 or 5 in the morning, whenever my parents got up to set all the presents out, one of them they touched me and woke me up, and I was like, I can't, like, I was mad, dude, because they had been lying to me, and they were really just trying to have a little kid-friendly game.
That's what people do.
But
it's a culture thing.
It is a culture thing. And the thing is, though, is that I brought these Amanita muscaria mushrooms. So they're kind of associated also with the Christmas tale. Yeah. And the more I've dug into it, the more I've realized that nobody can truly say where Christmas came from because there's so many different, like especially, I think we all know for sure it's not Jesus' birthday.
Of course, but it's always tied into that, right?
It is. And I'm by no means anti-Jesus, so I hope people don't take it that way, but it's definitely not his birthday. And so, like, the more modern interpretation, I think, has a lot to do with, like, you think about this. If you own a big corporation, when you need to get rid of all your shit?
The end of the year, man.
End of the year.
Yeah.
So, to me, like, just being a businessman off the rip, if I could think of no better time than to have the birth of Jesus when we should all be gifting each other his holiday, it'd be at the end of the year. And so if you look at some of our more recent, what pressed Christmas, I think it had a lot to do with merchandise and retail and stores trying to get rid of their stuff.
It makes sense, man.
And also, it does, because even as a business owner, I'm sure you've like if you make some money one year, you're like, hell, what can I do to to get a few extra write-offs at the end of the year? Like, give some things away, buy something, whatever you have to do.
Yeah, be charitable, spend money on people where I normally wouldn't do so. That makes sense for if I was that person, that mindset, trying to apply that. So
a lot of people don't know that there's also like you have like the Christian tradition, but before that there was a couple different pagan traditions that had to do with Santa Claus, like a shaman. Yeah. For instance, he might slide down your chimney. Yeah. And he might give you some of these mushrooms. And if you look at the styling of these mushrooms and the coloring, I don't want to take them out of the vacuum seal because they're for ornamental purposes only in Louisiana. Yeah. But it's the same color as Santa Claus with the red and the white. Yeah. And if you Google Santa Claus mushrooms or Santa Claus and Amanita muscaria, which is the name of them, you'll see a lot of the old Christmas pictures. The elves lived in mushrooms, the same ones as these.
You look at really old Christmas cards, you'll see that too.
They're all mushrooms. Yeah. And a lot of the elves live in there. Santa Claus lives in there. That's just part of the whole image. And if you even you've heard of Grandma got ran over by a reindeer. Yeah. So do you know why she got ran over? So a lot of people don't know that reindeer really love these mushrooms too. Okay. So it's kind of like if you listen to some of, I've never been around caribou like that, so I can't say firsthand. But apparently when they eat them, they get very rambunctious. They run around a lot. And apparently if you live, like a lot of places in the Netherlands and places further and further up north that grow these types of mushrooms and they have reindeer there, they would also eat them. And the reindeer could smell it while they were outside pissing somewhere. Okay. So they would actually smell that catnip sense activated, and they would run you over. Okay. Because they smelled the mushrooms. And that's how attracted they are to them. So they think that even the flying reindeer whole idea came from people eating these, seeing reindeer eat them, and then thinking they were flying, sort of thing.
It makes sense. It's something that that's been on my radar for a while. We haven't, and you said like, "Hey, man, we could talk about this." I'm like, "Yeah, it's a good topic," because I haven't talked about it. But I will say this. We'll go back to that in a second. It's like telling the kids, like, I never really told them. They just figured it out, and I didn't fucking keep lying to them, right? But at the same time, we were doing a donation drive today. I'm not going to shit on someone else's culture is what I'm getting at. Exactly. No matter what it is. Exactly. We're a donation drive today. Friend of mine's, their kids come. We did, raising for a local community here. Friend of mine's kids, they come in every year, hang out with us, and we go donate presents together. They came in, they were talking about they saw Santa Claus, what they're getting, and I'm just going to immediately jump right into that because that's their culture, and I'm not going to shit on it. So there's something to that, right? So like, if you do that with your family, that's fine. What I do with mine's fine. And people shitting on each other's cultures, I think it's just like shitting someone else's religion, right? You should do your own fucking thing.
Well, I totally agree with that, and I definitely don't want anyone to. Like when I was a little bit younger, I was probably a little more pro shit on somebody else. Yeah, because like
we all are.
When you learn something new and you're young, it's just you want
to take it and run with it. You want to be an activist.
Well, you just want motherfuckers to know you know something, and like that's cool. Except like kids still get to be kids. Yeah, but also like I've learned a lot from other cultures. There's a lot of, especially growing up in the South, you get a really big blanketed idea of how a lot of things work, and that's the gospel, and that's how it is. And there's a lot of places that I've been to where people from those same places told me how terrible they were, who had never been there. And when I got there, I found out that people there were just as nice. Yeah. And they might believe things a little bit differently, but they're not bad people. Yeah. And, I'm not here to tell somebody what they should or shouldn't believe when it comes to God and tradition, but tradition has held us together societally for a long time. And as much as I think certain things about Christmas are bullshit, there's nothing I love more than, like right now I'm about to go to Alabama to see my family who I haven't seen in a while for Christmas, and I am going to love this Christmas season because of that. I'm not going to get hung up on who, what, why, when we celebrate this, although I do think it's important. I don't think it's unimportant, but I do think there's a time and a place. Like you said, when you're at that drive and people are donating and giving, that's not a time to ruffle any feathers because we're all trying to do something for other people.
Exactly.
And I think that the biggest message is like, we can all have our opinions, but there is a time that we should put them aside and just be people together.
Yeah.
And I don't think that there's any other way to describe that.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about these mushrooms more. So these mushrooms, they're not your psilocybin mushroom. They're not going to give you. They're not an extreme hallucinogen, but they will give you a little bit of an effect there.
Well, no, that depends on who you. All right, so coming from someone with a decent amount of experience in mushrooming,
I wanted to talk about that too. So that's why we're segueing right
zero,
into it.
But zero with these. This
Okay.
is my first, like I said, I can't do this here. I got to do this back in Texas.
Right.
But psilocybin mushrooms, they have been used for thousands of years, as far as we know, just like these. A lot of people, when they talk about mushrooms that are psychedelic in nature and magic mushrooms, that's what they think about. And growing out of cow poop or however they make them.
Right.
The other thing about those is that you can grow them. Like if you know what you're doing and you get it right, like the spores or whatever you need, you can make them.
Yeah, and there's hundreds of types that produce the same.
Well, not hundreds, but there's like a good 20.
Okay, well I was going to say there's shitloads.
Well, there's a good 20 versus like these you can't grow. Like even the so I follow these different groups and different people that are good, like big time mycologists, and there's people that have been able to make something that kind of looks like this, but it's a very naturally, like it only occurs in like different types of pine and conifer forest. So you have to really know where to look, and also depending on what area you're in, there's some of them that are quite poisonous. So like it's the kind of mushroom you have to go forage, and you've got to know what you're doing. That's why I bought them, because they don't really grow in our area that much, and I didn't want to, because if you get the wrong ones, you can die.
Yeah.
But there's different, depending on how you prepare them, like these are dried, excuse me, these have been dried, dehydrated professionally, they've been vacuum sealed. So from this point, you can make them into a tea. You could, a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll take this is about 30 grams, so they'll take all this, they'll make it into a tincture, like you'll boil it for 30 or 40 minutes, and then whatever you have left, you kind of press out into a liquid, and it's good for about a week. Anything you have left, you can freeze it. So you have to be able to measure it, but if you take like a gram to 2 grams, people call that a microdose. And so some people, it's interesting because if you take this early in the morning, for a lot of, and everybody's different, but for a lot of people, it gives them a full day worth of energy. So like you drink a cup of coffee, except you just do a little tea with this, and you have a full day's worth of energy. And then some people will take that same amount, but right before bed, and it's a good sleep aid.
Yeah.
So it's interesting in that it can be a stimulant, but also it can be something that helps you sleep. And again, I haven't tried it myself, but supposedly you have very vivid dreams when you do the sleep aid version.
So you're gonna try it in both contexts?
I am. I want to do I want to take the whole 30 grams and kind of like do like a small micro dose of like in the morning time to see what it does for my energy throughout the day. And then wait a couple of days, do a similar nighttime, and then they say if you do like 5 to 10 grams, depending on the thing is the potency varies a lot with these. That's why they say that you should use a lot of them to make a big batch of like a boiled down substance.
So you can get something that's
it averages it all out because there's a 600% variance between potency.
That's a lot.
Between caps.
That's a fucking lot.
It is, yeah. So like you might eat one of these caps and nothing happens, and you might eat one of them and you're like,
yeah,
you don't know what's happening. So, but apparently, if you eat like up to 5 to 7, 10 grams, depending on your size and all, you can have quite an experience. The big thing is that if you like eating them fresh, not that good of an idea. They have in psilocybin mushrooms, you have psilocybin, and when you eat that, the acid in your stomach converts that into psilocin, which is what gives you a psychedelic experience.
Right.
These have 2 different psychoactive compounds, and one of them is slightly toxic. So if you read on the internet about these, they'll say toxic mushrooms because there's ibotenic acid and then there's mucimol.
Okay,
the ibotenic acid can cause upset stomachs. It can cause delirium. Just in general, not a good experience. The mucimol is what gives you more of a psychedelic experience. But what's interesting is that...
But it's suppressed, right? It's suppressed, and the psychedelic experience you get from these versus a psilocybin is quite more suppressed.
I don't think so. Well, I don't know because I haven't experienced it, but I can say that based on what I've heard, that's not necessarily the case. Okay. It's just different. Like, for one, they affect different receptors in your brain, but there's certainly a lot of... I feel like what the problem... well, not the problem, but like a lot of people don't have crazy psychedelic experiences with these because they don't know how to prepare them.
Right. Okay.
A psilocybin mushroom, you can...
do anything.
They're better to dry. They're
Yeah.
still better if you like dry them out if you're trying to achieve that goal. But you can also eat them fresh. These, if you eat fresh, you're likely to probably throw up and not have a great experience. But if you dry them out, it removes a lot of that ibotenic acid.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is that for some reason the ibotenic acid also helps exacerbate the mucimol, but only in a smaller amount. So once you dry them out or dehydrate them, they'll give you. Some people will just eat them like that, but versus eating them fresh, it's not good. Some people will also, they'll even measure, they get a pH balance measure because the pH balance will tell you how much it has of each. So,
well, what's interesting too, though, is okay. So let's go back to like the Santa Claus stuff. So like, how in the fuck do you think they figured out how to regulate and measure these things, finding them in the wild? Do you think it was just they just put them all in a pot and cooked them down?
All right, so I wasn't there back then, but the one of the things
what we know,
well, just like the grandma got ran over by a reindeer.
Right.
All right, the reason she got ran over was because she was pissing and she had already eaten some amanitas.
Yeah.
Okay. The reindeer smell that. They run her over because they want the mushrooms.
Right.
Well, subsequently, it's kind of a known practice that people would actually drink the piss from reindeer that had already eaten them because the reindeer can better handle the ibotenic acid and their body breaks it down
okay.
to where it's already in a better form.
So
So if you could capture a reindeer that had eaten these mushrooms, which I guess you had to be a badass motherfucker to do that anyways, but if you did that, you could drink the piss and have a better, more psychedelic experience without having to do anything to it.
Why in the fuck would you want to think to drink a reindeer's piss?
I don't know. I don't know. But I will say I've heard in other cultures like it's been denounced. Like so, they used to say that Siberian shamans, because like shamanism is like older than any religion.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is it's been noted in different parts of the world before we thought different parts of the world could
it was just their medicine doctor, basically in that community.
Sort of. So a lot of people think that the Siberian shamans, they were some people, there's been different accounts, so I'm not saying this is right or wrong, but some people think that the shaman even would eat these and then piss, and then you would drink the shaman's piss. That's also tied into some of the Santa Claus stories. So I do know, I'm down to boil some down. I'm not going to drink my own piss, just for the record.
Right.
But some people, from what I understand to this day, they'll still they'll just eat these raw,
and be sick, and then piss,
and then drink their piss.
That's fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
But hey,
it is fucking disgusting. Yeah. But it's crazy. Like, who was the first guy that was like, "Yo, this didn't work"? But what if
wait till my kidneys filter this all out and then we'll try it.
Yeah, so like that's I'm quite well, like I guess way back in the day though, like before you had any form of entertainment, there was a lot of different ways people probably
yeah, I mean we're all associating this to modern practice, right? I mean,
think about all the gross shit you seen when you were like 7. Like, what was the grossest thing you saw a kid do? You know what I'm saying? Like, it was probably pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
So imagine 7,000 years ago. What kids would do for fun.
Well, it's just like us eating something. Like, how in the fuck did we know as a culture when, like, if you just go out and you fucking fall out of a, woman and then you get old enough to move around and then you're in the wild fucking society and you're hungry, so you just consume. Like, motherfuckers had to try everything and figured out what you could eat and what you couldn't, right?
Well, they did. Well, so some people do think, too, that a lot of the start of the Christian religion had something to do with these. By the way, these same mushrooms, if you look at if you even look at the name Jesus, like what it was what's the word translated from?
Yeah.
In ancient Greek it was like Yahshua, which was Joshua, and it basically meant like the semen of God.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people think that if there's a specific book called The Mushroom and the Cross. But there's the Dead Sea Scrolls is what that's based off of, which is the oldest known text that we have. And so a lot of people even they correlate the name of God to like they thought that rain was God's semen. So I don't want people to think that it's like God's like
right. We're not
jerking off
sexual here. No,
it's not like that. No, yeah. but to them semen was like and if you even look in like biblical texts, a lot of people that are like a couple generations younger than us, like they weren't allowed to jerk off and stuff because that was like God's seed.
Yeah,
like it was very, very like you didn't just get to put it anywhere.
Oh, that was strictly for procreation.
It was, and also like imagine if you were in a place where you had a drought and that's what the rain is what you needed to eat off of, and then all of a sudden you guys are starving, and see when it rains the next morning mushrooms they're like that, and you don't put seeds out for them. So they thought it was the seed of God because it was like God feeding them when they didn't have to plant anything.
Yeah.
And they come overnight. Like it just that's just like a good mushrooms. If you notice, you'll go into a field and it rains good. Next day, they're everywhere.
If there's any type of organism there that's going to, I mean, that's it.
Exactly. So they would eat a lot of those because that was all they had to do. So I don't think that. I think over time, like, I do think there's a lot of different weird
Well, we just don't know, man. I feel like that everything's been written, rewritten. It's just like when you play that game in school where someone tells someone a fucking secret, and then by the time it gets around the room, it's completely different
the
than what it
telephone
started.
game or whatever?
Yeah, you remember that.
Yeah.
So it's like we don't know what stuff started as, but I think we're as a society are starting to debunk things as we dig into things after we're unveiling these fucking secrets that have been kept from us for so long. And I think people sometimes just go too far. They're like way too far this way or way too far the other way, saying, well, it's got to be this or it's got to be that, and there's no way that we were lied to. Well, I mean, it's not that we were directly lied to. It's just that things over time, the story gets misconstrued. And then so who knows what the fucking truth is or not. But being able to bring it back and then kind of divulge your own fucking, hypothesis from it's kind of fucking cool,
I think so. I think the main thing is that it pisses me off when people think they have all the answers.
Yeah,
like,
and no one does.
Like
no one does.
Like just because your book says this, and you like, I know you grew up like having to hear this your entire life, and so you're gonna obviously think that. But that doesn't mean it's all right. It also doesn't mean it's all wrong.
Right.
And the main thing is like, I believe that we're all, a common human species, and I think that we all have something we could teach each other, and we all have something we could learn from each other. And so I think if we look at it from a place of, okay, I may not agree with everything you say, but I know for sure that you're more swole than me, and you got that fucking whoop strap, and I might need one of them fucking straps if I want to get jacked. You know what I'm saying? Like it might not have been in my Bible, but maybe there's a new religion out there.
Well, yeah,
you know what I'm
and
saying?
It's like religion's an ideology, right?
It is.
That's all you boil it down to, and it was used for govern for a very long time, and that's where shit gets misconstrued. And I haven't had this conversation when I first started this podcast. I said I wasn't going to touch politics. I wasn't going to touch religion, but everything has changed because here's my thing: religion was used to govern. From as far back as we can remember, if you go all the way back to early Catholicism, where that fucking villages were fucking pillaged and raped and killed kids and women and taking men slaves and moved on, and like that's how culture started becoming more and more intertwined, right? Where all these villages were taking over other villages, and it was all the fucking Catholic Church, man. That's kind of like that's not modern day Catholic Church, but that's like Catholicism goes back that fucking far, and then you predate that, and then you mix in Christianity, and it's just like you don't really know what the answer is, but you do look at things, and it is a term, like a form of government.
It is, but also the thing that pisses me off about some modern day religious people is that they fail to admit, not all of them, but a lot of people fail to admit that a lot of the stories that they practice in their religion are just recycled from previous religion.
That's another thing. But here's
writing.
They don't do
well, a lot of it's writing though. See, like writing
they don't do the investigation.
Well, maybe, but also like it's harder to investigate because this is one of the first written religion. You know what I'm saying? Like this, the stuff that we're studying now is the first written stuff,
right?
And we're in a period to where that's the most recent in a religious aspect, whereas the people that were born like in the era of Jesus, they didn't have a bunch of texts they read. Like it was just, and even Christianity, like it wasn't a real thing until a couple hundred years after he died. I think like 400 years. So like a lot of people think that even when Jesus was alive, like you weren't a Christian. Like that's not what you were.
No.
There was a lot of Dionysian Greek rituals that got tied up into that with that. And a lot of people that carried his story on were Greeks. Like
it fascinated me because I was into my early 20s before I started going to college. So I got out of high school, went to the oil and gas industry, then decided to go back to college online and get my degree so I could move up in management in the oil and gas industry. And I started studying these history. I had these history classes for my business degree, and I started looking at these history. I had these classes. I was looking at these things. I was looking at Catholicism, and I was looking at Greek stuff, and I was looking at Roman stuff, and how stuff overlaps so much, and it started just giving me a broad. I have a broad view of religion as a whole because there's a lot of stories that are regurgitated but told in a different manner. But there's no way if we're across the fucking hemisphere that these still line up, right? It's weird.
Well, I mean, I hear what you're saying, except like if you go back like like what's the oldest known civilization we have right now? It's like Göbekli Tepe, and it's like almost 13,000 years
but we
old.
just now recently discovered
discovered
before
it,
that it was what, Mayans? I mean the Aztec? No, the Mayans. Excuse me.
No, I think before that it was the Egyptian stuff. I think
that was before.
I think
that.
the Egyptian. No, I mean I'm no scholar on this, so I could be wrong, but I do know that Göbekli Tepe was the most recent,
right?
And
that's now been predated older than 12,000 years. What my point there before we get into that was that it's very interesting how these stories are similar.
Yeah,
but with different meaning.
Exactly. Well, but one of the things they all talk about though is Great Flood. Like, there's a lot of these. Yeah. The Great Flood's a big one that's very. It's mentioned in a lot of different ancient texts outside of religious texts. Including religious texts.
Who wrote Graham? What's Graham's last name?
Hancock.
Graham Hancock produced that series and visiting all those single civilizations, telling a similar story is very interesting, right?
It is, because it's like it's pretty obvious that they all add up, and it's funny how like some stories just last the test of time. You know, like that whole like flood story. It's been around for a long time, and it's around in a lot of cultures. And I guess my biggest thing is that I just don't like when people discount other cultures' ideologies or where they're coming from because they assume theirs is the best. When I would rather hear them all and form my own conclusion.
Exactly, I'm the same way. That's what I immediately thought when I started looking at these religions. I was like, it's not saying anything against how I've been raised with Christianity, but also looking in that if I was born in another area and I had no idea of this religion,
would you be?
You're saying that I'm sinned and damned to hell because I'm. But then your arguments, well, someone's going to eventually come there and teach it to you. In what life? No, that's not how it works, right? So it's like you got to. My thing always, my comparison always with this, and my argument always is, or my answer to any of these arguments is always like, look, man, I feel like if you do good shit happens. And if you do bad shit fucking happens. At the end of the day, it all washes itself out, and you can believe in whatever you want to believe in, you know?
I agree with that. And I'm sure there's outlying scenarios where people just had a bad run, but I do know for sure that the more good I've done towards other people, the more things just happen for me.
Exactly.
And I've also been at darker times in my life where I wasn't always doing the right thing, and things felt pretty shitty. And I always felt like the world was caving in on me. And one day I just realized that I was, I was the one causing all that.
Do you think, so you've had quite a few let's see here. How many psychedelic experiences have you had? And recently, did you have that one recently we talked about? Did you, for your birthday, did you do all that shit you talked about?
Well, I didn't go to Peru. No.
Okay. No, but you were going to go up in the mountains or something and do like...
Well, we did, but the weather got really bad.
Okay.
It ended up getting diverted into Austin, so we didn't really... We didn't do the same stuff that I planned on doing.
Well, my question is, do you think that having... Since... It's interesting, right? The more industries you're involved in, the older you get, the more wise you become of different things and elements and how you operate and move on a day-to-day basis. Do you think psychedelic experiences has added more to your arsenal? You know what I mean? Like things you've been through. What's monumental to you in any of those experiences?
I think when I was a little bit younger and I first started doing it, it was more of an escape. Like, all right,
What made you want to even try it though?
I think where I grew up, like when I started experimenting with different drugs when I was pretty young teenager.
Do you think that was something just to be cool? Because a lot of it sometimes is. Or you think it's something just to try something new or get away from reality?
There was a degree. Well, so I used to be in a gifted class where like all the smart kids go to,
Yeah.
And before that, I was like, before that age, like this was like 7th grade when I'd been in the classes for a while, but when I got into 7th grade specifically, went to junior high, I was like I wouldn't cuss. I was an angel. And this really smart girl that was in the same class with me was telling me how these kids were going to go smoke some weed. They were all in this class together, and I was like, y'all motherfuckers smoke weed? I was like kind of taken aback by it.
Yeah.
And so immediately I didn't want to be like the out. So I was kind of trying to be cool, I guess, in that aspect. Like I wanted to like experience it with them. And like from where I came from, my dad did a lot of drugs and like he kind of fucked everything up. So to me, like drugs were just bad and you just didn't do that. But after I, talked to somebody that was kind of like from a different class of society that did things a little bit differently, I was like, let me see what this is about. So I guess my initial run-ins as a young teenager with like substances, like smoking some weed, was kind of like probably to try to fit in. But I immediately enjoyed that feeling, and I don't feel like I was addicted to it necessarily. It just gave me a creative outlook, and it just kind of gave me a little bit of an escape from just having a hellacious life. Psychedelics probably came, I think the first time I ever tripped, I was like 16.
Okay.
And at the time, it was definitely like, I think I was just trying to take a different step in the realm of like seeing what this would do. And it was fun. It wasn't until...
What was it? What'd you do? Like
that
acid,
first time was acid, yeah.
Okay, acid,
I think it was
That's
actually,
typically most people's like first thing they try.
Maybe. I guess it depends on where you... I mean, like I certainly grew up on a cow farm where everybody thought mushrooms grew at.
Yeah,
but with a lot of the new feeds, they make it so they can't grow them.
Yeah.
So I never really found any like that. But it was pretty much... Let's say I did my first mushroom experience at like 20, and I took a little bit too much, and I was actually scared from that point. I didn't even want to do them anymore. So it took like
what scared you? Like you had like a dark trip or like what?
Well, it was like I was on my bachelor party. I got married too young one time, so that was like I was there with some buddies, and we just took more than we didn't know what we were doing. We had too much, I think, and we just got into this weird repetitive loop where like we were all in my hotel, and like I was closing and opening this door over and over again, and like my cousin was just getting up and sitting down.
Oh, so that was that kind
that's one of the things. If anybody like Amanitas, by the way, they can cause very repetitive. They say you should have a sitter with these specifically because you can do things that are repetitive, and if they're dangerous, you have to watch out for that. So everything's not safe with psychedelics. You gotta be careful. But for like 9 years, I swore them off, and then right around the pandemic, I did a hero's dose of mushrooms, which was that's what Terrence McKenna tells you to do. You do like 5 dry grams in a dark room, and that really got me on my fitness journey because it made me realize that I had been too lazy.
Yeah.
I had been like, it was like, hey, like you're a good man. Like the message I got was like, you're a good person, you're a good man, and you kind of have your life together, but you're selling yourself short because you're just putting yourself on the back burner. Like when you're just giving everybody else all of you. And so like I just kind of got a little fat. I was a little out of shape, and I just wasn't in the best place mentally.
Yeah.
And so whatever. I can't speak for everybody, but whatever it did was it took me, and it just made me like get up the next day and say, hey, I'm going to take better care of myself. And so I won't speak on all of my experiences because some of them are a little more intimate, I guess, to myself, but they have at least made me more accountable to myself and aware of who I am as a person and that I'm special in this whole universe. And it doesn't have to be special, more special than someone or anything.
Right.
I'm just special to me. And that's kind of what I gathered from it.
Yeah, well, I think I think it's something that I have had minimal psychedelic.
Have you ever done any? Have you done what have you done?
So I have. Man, this will be the first time I talk about it. It doesn't matter to me. So I've done some acid. Probably, I don't know. It's probably been. How old am I now? 30. It's probably been 15 years, man. A little bit there. Done some mushrooms, and I'm not even sure what they were. I'm sure they were psilocybin, but low dosage and nothing crazy. Some giggles and some slight hallucinations. Nothing where I needed to lay down and actually get a full experience. I'm entertaining the idea of, and we talked about this, of doing the ayahuasca thing. I think I still have some kind of dark ass shit inside, like, and I'm just like the ayahuasca thing kind of worries me that shit may come out, like, but I know it won't. It's just weird. Like, I don't know.
But maybe it will. Maybe that's a good thing.
Well, I think that like I feel great about everything in my life and everything, but I think that like when you change as a person, right, and you slowly grow, then you still feel like some of that old part's still in there somewhere, lingering, wanting to come out, and I don't want it to come out in the wrong. I don't know. It's just fucking weird. I've thought about it though. It's just like people. I guess I need to be ready to face that shit. You just got to face that shit, and that's going to make you face it.
I think that's true in a lot of ways. I think one thing a lot of people get twisted up with this is that it's this party drug that you got to do at a music festival or something like that.
Which one?
Any kind of psychedelic. A lot of people associate them with raves and people going to festivals, and I think that's great for some people.
That's not how I want to participate.
Well, but I know a lot of people that have freaked out in that way. But I also, from my experience, I think that it's a more personal, intimate experience. And I think that if you think that there's some dark thing you're holding on to, or that there might be there,
I don't have like a pronounced dark thing, but it's just like, fuck, man, I used to be a motherfucker. You know what I mean? I'm not anymore,
well,
and I don't want that person.
I certainly
I don't even want to talk to that person. You know what I mean? It's not an afraid thing. It's more just like dismissal and don't want the motherfucker coming back in the room. You know what I mean?
I hear that, and I think that it definitely can bring. If there's something you should face, I think it can bring that out.
Yeah, and I think that's good for everyone. I think everyone should face what they fucking need to face, or even what they're worried about facing.
And when a lot of people say they have a bad trip,
but they need to be ready to face it too.
Well, yeah, whether they are or aren't, I just think a lot of people when they're worried about having a bad trip. Like for one, like you're probably going to come back from it. But some people, there are people with schizophrenic predispositions that probably should stay away from things like that. I'm not saying it's good for everyone, but I do think that some things need to be brought to light, and it's a great medium for that.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, I think that you would know more, man. Like I said, you've had more experience in this than I have, but I think that in the mushroom thing, I would like psilocybin experience that's more controlled and dialed in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would like. My thing is, if I'm going to try anything, especially if it's something that's quote unquote legal. You know what I mean? Something that I think is going to benefit me mentally. Because physically, I figured this shit out, and I'm still working. I'm working on it every day, but I figured it out. But like, if there's a way for me to become stronger mentally, I had the conversation with Ankit Kapoor. He's now an attorney, but he used to be an NYC cop, and we were talking about, I don't know if we talked about this. We did talk about this. I was about to say before I said something on air. We did talk about this, and he's like, man, I just came back from it more respective of myself and others. You know what I mean? On the ayahuasca experience, he said it was fucking scary, and people were shitting on themselves and throwing up on themselves, and it's fucking weird, but it's your body rejecting its own fucking truth, really, if you think about it, and is at the end of the day, you got to come in tune with that.
I definitely think. Okay, I think that tripping is a really crazy experience, but I think it's in the right environment. I think it's a lot more chill than what people like. Yeah, like in an ayahuasca experience, you might see somebody throwing up or shitting themselves.
Yeah,
but maybe they need to. Like, that's what
I'm saying. Like,
maybe that person needed a little humiliation. Like I'm not saying that humiliation is good either, but I'm just saying that in the right environment, I've never heard someone say like, damn, I wish I hadn't done that.
Well, you're doing it. Me either.
In the wrong environment, I myself have said, fuck, I wish I had not have done that.
Right. There's times I drink, I shouldn't have fucking been, there's times.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so,
but I think that
if you look at it from that lens too, it's a lot easier. Like it's easy to say, oh, well, like I threw up. Like, dude, how many times have you thrown up from drinking? You know what I'm saying?
But also you're doing it for your mind, not for your body. So if your body has a little bit of distress for a minute, for your mind to become a little more, have a little more fortitude, then why not? You know what I mean?
Well, and it's literally something that's been growing on our planet since before we were.
Yeah.
So who are you? I'm not saying obviously there's things that grow here that kill you too. So I'm not saying you should eat every mushroom.
No.
But I will say that it's good for some people, and I'm certainly not the kind of person that likes to press it on people that aren't ready either. But I do think a lot of people could benefit from it if they approached it from more of a therapeutic aspect versus let me go get fucked up.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I mean, I definitely, my insight and I say that my curiosity and focus on this is all from a therapeutic standpoint, not for recreational.
A lot of people don't know they're doing a huge psilocybin research fucking program right here in Shreveport right now. Yeah, dude, they have at LSUS. They might be done with it technically now, but they have one of the biggest psilocybin research programs in the whole country was just done there.
Holy shit!
Yeah, man. I know one of the doctors. I'm not going to say the name just because I don't know if that's something they want mentioned. But there's a couple of different doctors, and they've had actual. Well, we're close to a military base too, so I don't know if they couldn't give me this kind of information. I think they've been using PTSD sufferers from Barksdale.
Well, that's another thing that has been proven to be beneficial, right? But they're still working on those things because.
Well, and that's for me personally. I didn't know that I suffered from PTSD. I started seeing a therapist a few years ago.
Well, okay, so how did this come about?
PTSD for me, I didn't serve in the military or anything like that, but
It can come from all different directions.
Well, my very first memory was almost drowning to death.
Okay.
So like my first memory was like literally being in the bottom of a pond and like seeing the bright light from the surface, and some guy just pulled me out and like resuscitated me.
Or you just too young and went in there to swim, or what?
Well, no. Well, my parents were fishing at this big ass pond, and they left me sleeping on the back of this truck. But the truck was parked on a dam, so I woke up. I roll off of the bed of the truck, and then I roll into the deepest part of the pond where the dam is.
Yeah.
And they were fishing on some other guy's land, and he just happened to be. He had like a big 2-story house, and he just happened to be, probably stretching on the balcony, and he saw me roll in the water. So he literally like jumped off of his 2nd-story balcony and like ran and like saved me.
And your parents just, I guess they figured it out once the commotion was
Well,
over.
I think they saw him. I mean, I was too young to. All I remember is just being pulled out of the water and like see it. Like it was literally like going to the light. It was really a crazy first because I remember it, but I don't remember like it wasn't
How old
like
were you?
2.
And you remember that?
Yeah,
I vaguely have memories of 4.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like I don't remember when. I think when you have traumatic experiences, you have because like after that, my next memory is probably about 3. So like it wasn't like I remembered everything from them, but I just remembered that, and I don't remember words or why they were doing what. I just remember that happening.
Yeah.
And not having the best childhood and home environment, like when you don't know what your dad's going to do or what if your parents are, when you're always the thing about PTSD is that, and I didn't know that I suffered from it until I got told that by a therapist, but it's like you're so used to things being fucked up around you that you're ready for it. You're ready. Well, I can only imagine a guy that's like ready for a bomb to go off around the corner.
You're in a reactive position.
Yeah, I'm just worried about my dad to fucking bitch slap somebody around the corner. So once I really started like using them for like a medicine and doing some higher doses that really like kind of helped me reset a little bit, it just made me more at ease. And like there's a lot of social environments I used to be a lot more like alert in where it was just a normal environment, but my wiring in my brain had told me like, hey, you need to be worried about this, and this. So I don't know what it does specifically for soldiers in that way, but I know in my own experience, it's just made me able to deal with normal life in a way that used to put me in a lot more stressful chemical situation internally, and now it's a little more even keel.
Yeah, I think it's something that obviously is very effective, and that we're still like trying to figure out as a society and figure out how to govern this shit and distribute it and everything. But I do at the same time. I think people use anxiety as a crutch too. Like I think that there's a fine line between having something wrong and just not wanting to fucking experience life at all. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think we give people those like. Okay, so like, what have we done as we've gotten better with technology? What have we done? We made ourselves more soft, right? Like we
made ourselves more vulnerable, physically.
Well, yeah, but we have better beds. We got climate control, all these things. So like, for me now, a cold plunge is hardcore. But one of the like if you lived in a normal environment without any climate control, you wouldn't want to lay in bed because you would die. You would have to get up in the morning.
Yeah, you wouldn't know. Like if you were say you're just in a sub-zero cold climate and it lived in 30 degrees all the time, you wouldn't know that you were cold or hot because that's the fucking temperature experience all the time. You know what I mean? Based on the season, I guess, but still, like, so it is interesting. Yeah, we definitely have become more come easily penetrated, man. Like really, like from every single angle, mentally, physically. Like it's just that tell of as the less you do, the softer you become, kind of fucking thing,
Well, and I used to not really. I didn't know how hardcore I guess my life was as a kid. To understand, like when I get older, like I've still got to push myself because this goes away.
Yeah, but then we say hardcore, but really. In some other culture, that ain't shit. It's weird.
Sure.
It's weird. It's weird.
And also, like, even if you grew up much softer than me, like, the hardest thing you ever did is still the hardest thing you ever did.
Yep.
So, like, I just hope that, I guess, and I think that's one of the things psychedelics do in a way. Like, there is a moment, depending on how hard you're tripping, to where you might go to a place where you're like, damn, is this, like, am I ever even going to come back to reality? And it's a little scary.
I felt that before, like, I won't do any fucking edibles no more, dude. Every time I do edibles, I go too hard. The only time I haven't is when I've got like a tart. The tarts seem to be a little more even keel than the fucking gummies. Every time, even chocolates. Every time you're like, okay, I'm going to wait 45 minutes, an hour, and then it doesn't hit, and then you eat a little bit more, and every fucking time, dude, it hits me. And when it hits me, it gives me weird ass fucking. That's why I've had experience. I don't even think I've ever talked about it on here. I've had experiences where I had dark ass fucking thoughts, and it scared the fuck out of me. Like, why am I even having these weird thoughts? Not that I was going to act on those thoughts, but I was just that they were even in my consciousness, and I was having them, and I was like, that made me stray away from even trying to do psychedelic. But I know it's a completely different realm.
Well, but maybe you do like, so like we all have a dark and a light side, I think, and there's this more Eastern like belief that's like, okay, there's like this muse going, kind of like what an artistic muse. So like, there's many thoughts that come through my head today. If I were to act on every single one of them, right, I would not be probably a good. Like, there's many thoughts that you have, and everybody can say what they want, but there's things that sometimes I'll even think of randomly that I don't want to do, but they're just bad.
Yeah.
And it's like, why did I even fucking think of that? Yeah. So I'm not saying it's exactly the same for you, but I do think that sometimes letting that out, and I think what psychedelics can do is sometimes let some of that darkness out.
Yeah.
In a way where it's just you and yourself, and not you versus somebody you didn't mean for it to come out on.
Yeah, it was a me and myself thing. It wasn't a me and someone else thing, but still, like, it's happened multiple times, but it's never happened when I smoked, right? It's just when I've ingested, like, you know.
Well, edibles can be quite psychedelic, man. Like, yeah. I'm a little jealous for that.
But the thing is, like, I felt better afterwards, but during it freaked me the fuck out. Like, I was laying there like, I should be sleeping right now. I'm not. Why the fuck am I thinking these things?
Isn't it weird? It feels like a good workout sometimes after one of those kind of trips. It's like when you get on the other side.
The next day, I was like, a friend of mine had taken them too, and they were like, yeah, I'm still feeling hungover. But it wasn't even a hungover. It's just like I feel like I was taken away from reality for a fucking good 8 to 10 hours. You know what I mean? Like, I was taken away from all the noise, and then bringing me back to all the fucking noise took a while. But yeah, dude, it's definitely interesting. I'm very fucking interested in it. I'm baby stepping back into that pool, I guess. Yeah.
Well, man, maybe we'll figure out what the real Christmas spirit is about this year.
Oh shit. Okay. Well, look, let's end this on this. So, talk about anybody want to find you on anything? You're doing some comedy stuff. What's that looking like? So,
my comedy stuff's pretty up and down. It's like I do mostly open mics right now, or exclusively open mics. So it's pretty much mostly in Dallas. I do hit the LOL. Laugh Out Loud Comedy Club here downtown Shreveport. Yeah. Whenever I'm in town, they do an open mic every other Thursday night, and then they have shows on Fridays and during the weekends too. If anyone wants to catch that out or check that out, the Tiki Bar is doing some open mic stuff now, as well as a few comedy acts, and then the Seventh Tap locally is also doing that. If anybody's in Dallas, sometimes I'm at the Dallas Comedy Club. There's also one. There's several spread out over Dallas. Sorry, I'm just drawing a blank on the other name. But at any rate...
What location? Where at in Dallas? That'll help.
Yeah, I'm doing some in Grapevine. There's a new one I'm supposed to check out whenever we get out of the Christmas break that's in Plano. Have you done
the one in Highland Park yet? There's one in Highland Park. I don't remember the name of it, but me and my wife went there. Probably... It was like, dude, fresh out of COVID. Great little club. Oh man, I can't. It's in this little shopping center, like 2-story shopping center area. It's in Highland Park though.
Well, I can't think of that, but look, if you need to get out of jail, you can find us Fast AF Bail Bonds you can Google us 525-5424 on the phone, and if you want to find me on Instagram, it's Stay Trippy 8732.
Nice. All right, let's wrap it, bro.
I enjoyed it, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for having me.